Okay, I think I'll get started. Welcome to this will be the last session. I think there's other sessions starting in half an hour, so if you all want to leave, I won't be offended. Halfway through, you can just all go to another talk. That's okay. I've put this QR code up. This is a PDF of all my slides. This is going to be quick. I did this talk back when Drupal CMS 1 was released for Drupal Camp England, and I started off thinking, oh, it'll be nice and quick, just go through it, and then I realised how much stuff is in Drupal CMS, and I worked out that there was about 60 slides that I needed, and there's been more stuff added, so hang on, don't bother reading, because the slide will go before you finish reading it, and then you can just check later. So this is me. I'm Gareth Alexander. I'm a senior Drupal developer. That's my stuff. That's my QR code will get you to my Drupal.org profile. I am a track lead for the accessibility tools that have been added to Drupal CMS. So I got to surf the edge of Drupal CMS as it was being built, and I saw most of the stuff that was getting in there. I only got involved because I really wanted to learn recipes, and I was like, what can I build with recipes? And I saw that they needed accessibility tools, and so I built the recipe. As a quick introduction, Drupal CMS 1.0 was released back in January. Lots happened. It's obviously built on recipes. It's designed, or the idea of it was a no-code site builder, and it's added a lot of Drupal. It's obviously built on Drupal core. It's got a lot of modules, a lot of best practice configuration. As I was saying, that surfing the edge of development, I saw a lot of stuff go in, and then stuff got pulled out as we got closer to the release, because there was this kind of it was decided that nothing would go in without a full version release, so things that didn't quite get finished got pulled out the last minute. But some of the stuff has made it back in, and you'll probably see that coming out in 2.0 next month. And this is going to be high speed, and it's a kind of a surf over what is provided by the recipes, what you can pull out. I get excited in a few places, because there's some really nice stuff in there. It gets repetitive in a wee bit, so trigger warnings, and there's some code, so be aware. Okay, so what are recipes? You probably all know there's been loads of talks, but I see them as ways to bundle up bits of best practice, and it's pre-configured setups. So the way that I learned Drupal was deconstructing lots of distributions and install profiles, and just digging in and going, right, Commerce Kickstarter, how did they build that? Oh right, okay, right, and then finding out what that is. And that's what Drupal CMS, I think, is really good at. It's the best and the brightest of Drupal developers putting together bits and bubbling up kind of wee bits of best practice. Yeah. Back this time last year, I think this was, Dries said there was 14 recipes in the works. We got, going too fast. We got 28, and then one was removed because analytics, really all that did was it just installed the Google Analytics recipe, so it was removed. But we got 27 recipes, which isn't bad going. And a nice wee fist bump kid, because no DrupalCon is complete without fist bump kid. Where's that not moving? Okay, so what is how do these break down? When you finish installing it, you get a bunch of tools that just kind of builds the website. You get to, in 1.0, you get to choose your content types during the installer, and you can pick that, and then once you click install, you get whatever ones you have picked. You can pick none, and you'll just get the page content type, but you also get some tools that you can install afterwards. Yeah, I've called them installed because they're just there, some content types and tools. but there is an issue on Drupal.org where there's a lot of bike sharing happening over what these should actually be called, how we should categorize these recipes, and yeah, I think it's actually postponed now, so because more things are changing. Okay, so what is in a recipe? This is most recipes. You get a composer JSON file and you get a recipe file. They're pretty standard. Most of them will have some config, which is pretty much the same as the config that you would export whenever you do a config export. So that's a folder full of YAML files. Does everybody know what YAML files are and know what config YAML files look like? Good. Content, again, a bunch of YAML files. Mostly it's been the default content module, just exports your nodes and your files and your media. So you'll find folders in there that have files, nodes, content, this kind of stuff. And a test folder that has a test of the recipe, not of the stuff that the recipe is installing. So if you put a password policy module together, you check that your recipe has been installed, not that the password policy module works. It's got its own recipes. It's got its own tests for that. So if you're doing complex config and things like that, you might want to check that you have a dashboard after your recipe's installed, but you wouldn't actually test that the dashboard works necessarily, just that it's there. Okay, so I'm going to jump through composer and recipe, but I just wanted to mention that now that we've got site templates, the site templates recipe will also have usually a recommended and a screenshot, and that's what you see in the 2.0 installer. You'll see the screenshot, and it's just a kind of a welcome to this recipe thing. And the recommended YAML file is other recipes that are available. So in the starter stuff, I think Project Browser now shows all the other recipes that ship with it. Okay. Composer JSON file. Everybody done Composer install and looked at the Composer file and everything like that? So yeah. Each recipe will have that, and that's how you get the modules that the recipe requires. You can see this is the starter one, and it's installing BPM.io, automatic updates, dashboard, ECA, and then all the Drupal CMS recipes. Version 2 of this changes slightly. Dashboard goes, and it goes into another recipe, as I remember, and we get Canvas. There's going to be some touching on version 2 of this, but it's daily shifting. The other night when I tried to install it, it wouldn't even install, and then it worked about 20 minutes later, so that's proper wild side stuff. The recipe YAML file is, again, you'll recognize it. This one is quite long. It starts off giving you a bit of information, and then it says that recipes bit is, these are the recipes that this recipe depends on. You can't go any further without these recipes installed, and you'll see that the first 4 are core recipes. They come with Drupal core now. I'm not going to look through them, and we'll go through each of these in a bit. So yeah, the standard profile, I think, is going to go away, and it's going to become just another starter template, but those recipes are there and works. This is the version 2, and I can't remember what actually changed. I don't think anything changed, did it? Yes. You see the CMS page recipe got taken out of the starter template, and it's now moved into I think it's into Privacy Basic, if I remember rightly. Yeah. Right. The next part of the YAML file is install, and this basically tells the installer, I need all these modules installed. So it just runs through one at a time, installs them all. We've got Canvas, dashboards being installed, ECA, all these kind of things. It will install all of these modules and then move on. The next part of the recipe is configuration, and it usually starts with an import, and it's here it's saying go into the Canvas module, get all the config that ships with Canvas module and apply it. You can also apply just bits of config using this, so it's grabbing the large and the thumbnail image styles from the image module, and it's also grabbing the admin people view from the user module. And then we go on, and the next bit is kind of interesting. This is config actions. Basically, there's a whole bunch of configs now there, and this will change specific configs. So you can see here that the dashboard welcome module, this line here is what's called a config action, and there's loads of them, and they're documented in the recipes distribution project. And these actions just do stuff to the config. So yeah, this is obviously adding a component to the layout, and all that config is just bits of information for the installer, but ultimately this puts a block in a certain region. Okay, as I said, the recipes initiative page is there. It's got links to the recipe author guide. If you want to write your own recipes, you can get all the information that you need from there. The config actions list, again, is there. Loads of config actions, and I think more are kind of getting added daily. No, maybe not. There is some other modules, and I know that I've missed a few off here. Obviously, Adam released the site template generator as well, which will be nice, but the recipe generator's pretty good, and the recipe installer kit will allow you to do something similar that Drupal CMS does, so that you can write your own installer. However, current recommendation is just use Drupal CMS. The installer's really good. Put your own recipe or site template now in there and run that. That's the end of my code, so the next bit gets a bit repetitive. I'm not going to go through this. This is the kind of stuff. The last session here said the same kind of thing. Recipes are applied, they're not installed, you don't update them. The config becomes your config, so once you've installed a recipe, whatever your config management is, whether it's leave it in the database, export it and push it, that's your thing. You can actually throw the recipe away once the site is built. This is a site building tool, and yeah, thanks to the recipe unpack module, all the composer stuff that's in those composers then become a part of your composer. The YAML files all end up in your sync folder, and you just move on with your life. So the starter recipe, as I said, it installs. I got this stuff straight out of the composer file, and it installs these recipes one by one, and we're going to move straight on to the admin UI. So admin UI, it installs Coffee, Dashboard, Gin, Project Browser, Simple Add More, and Tagify. Basically all this does is it sets up Gin login, and then puts some blocks in place. That's what Gin looks like. That's what the dashboard module looks like. Happy? Let's move on. Anti-spam. There's very little to see in this one. This is captchas. 3 different ones: captcha, friendly captcha, and friendly captcha challenge. Honeypot, it sets up spam protection for the site. It also allows the user, the admin user, not to ever see any of that stuff. No pictures, because I'm not a robot, so I don't see it. CMS authentication is quite interesting. Login email username basically means you can log in with your email rather than without a username. But the other ECA, BPMIO, and Modeler API are relatively new. They were new when I wrote this talk 8 months ago. Everybody's used them now, and everybody's really happy with ECA. You all know what that is? Nobody does. It's really complex, but it makes complex things really nice. If you've ever used rules in the past, I think this is the replacement for that. This particular one does some user management stuff. It looks like that, so it's kind of modeling workflows. You can drag things, drop things, and build up quite complex user workflows. This one is the user registration, so when the user starts registering for the site, this tells the site what to do. Ultimately, there's when the user logs in, where do they go, ditches them back to the dashboard, and this is graphical. I think it's meant to make really complex things look nice. I think it does. Okay, next bit, CMS Privacy Basic. This is where the page module, the page recipe gets installed, because this says before you install me, install the page. But again, it uses BPMIO ECA to set up some really interesting stuff with Claro, which is Drupal CMS's version of cookie management. It chose Claro over things that anybody else uses because one of the requirements for Drupal CMS was that you don't take out big expensive subscriptions to get stuff done. And Claro's a really nice way of doing cookie management. We'll see it in action a wee bit later on, but basically Claro looks like that. You can see it grabs the cookies that are dropped by Drupal and asks, what do you want to do with them? Are they, what purposes are they? Are they functional? Are they required? This kind of thing. Can you opt in? Can you opt out? There's 2 enabled and 3 disabled there. So the Drupal CMS functional ones are there. You can change the settings in those, and then, but thanks to ECA is when an event happens, there's a couple of conditions and then do something, and so when it gets to the remote video module, it comes in and it goes, okay, I've now installed myself, Claro's there, I need to register that YouTube uses tons of cookies, set me up some rules. As we saw, the CMS page was depended on, so let's have a wee quick look at that. It installs nothing, and it just sets up layout builder, and it sets permissions and workflows, and I think it also sets up the filters as well. I should have mentioned that. Maybe I shouldn't. Again, this is one of these dependency. It depends on the dependency. The content type base is just a standard one. So most of the content types all depend on page, which depends on this. So that's when this stuff starts getting a bit repetitive. The basic page content type has field content and a field description and an image, and you'll see that starting to get repeated. So all of the content types will end up looking very similar. I might go quicker at that point. Okay, this is a basic page. This is the first module that installs some default content. It comes with a privacy policy, and that is related to the privacy module, the privacy recipe rather, and this needs to be edited. You need to write what your privacy policy is and then publish this. And you can see at the top there that you've got the moderation thing, so this isn't published. You can apply that and make it published once you've edited it. The content type base sets up autosave form. Again, there's BPMIO ECA to do various things regarding the workflows. As soon as another content type gets there, you need to set up stuff in the workflow. So ECA goes, I've got a new content type, I need to set up a workflow, I need to do things, and ECA's managing all of that, which is really nice. Path auto again, you've got some automatic aliases all set up. I really like that they put the trash module in there, because it means now people can delete content but not get rid of it straight away. If you've got any kind of auditing that you need to do, you can delete stuff and it disappears from the site but doesn't disappear. And also you've got scheduler and that nice kind of helper module that means you can actually schedule stuff when you've got a workflow. So scheduler, content moderation, integration. Love that module. The other thing, I can't remember where that, yeah, the starter template, we're back onto the stuff that it installs. It sets up CMS image, which grabs the core media type image, but it also sets up responsive images, focal point, and allows you to put SVG images in place. And then the configuration wise, you get a lot with this, so much so that I had to use a video. You've got responsive image styles, and you've got a lot of them, lots of different aspect ratios, lots of different resolutions. They're mostly using focal point and setting up WebP images, which makes the images really fast for Google. But you've also got the responsive images and breakpoints and things. They're all set up. There's loads, but there's it's for all of the different sizes of the website, yeah, a lot going on. And actually, I've just noticed this is out of date. The version 2 of this changes again. There's even more. Okay, this is the first thing that I was really interested in, was the remote video. Like I said, it sets up, it makes sure that privacy, you can install these recipes independent of Drupal CMS. You could actually just do Composer required Drupal CMS remote video and get this in your own site. But it will need to grab Drupal CMS Privacy Basic, and obviously it will make sure that you have the remote media video type set up, and then ECA steps in and goes, okay, so you have Vimeo, they drop cookies, you have YouTube, they drop cookies, what one do you want? As soon as one gets enabled, boom, you get an entry added into Claro, and you'll see that in the events module, because Google Maps does that as well, but we're not using Google Maps. Yeah, right. You'll see that later. Drupal CMS SEO Basic. This is search engine optimization, and this sets up the kind of the technical aspects of a website to make sure that they are as findable as possible. And then you do your keyword research, and you use keyword stuff all your content and make it bubble up. But you can't do any of that stuff. Doesn't matter what you do if the site doesn't put meta tags on your site, or if you don't have paths that are logical, and you have XML sitemaps and things like that ready for Google to find. So you'll see easy breadcrumb, that puts stuff in that hierarchy. So when you're on the news page, you've got news, and then when you're in a news item, you can still see the news is its parent, and path auto is set up so that you don't get node 1, node 2, node 3, blah blah blah. This also sets up caching and things like that, so that when you do your Lighthouse report, it at least doesn't say you're god awful, because that's stuff that Google actually do rate you on. And if your site is really slow and it doesn't work well on mobiles, you will get penalized in your search results. I'm going to skip kind of over this a wee bit, because Easy Email Express is it's a module, and you can go and just grab it and install it everywhere. Basically all it does is it replaces all of Core's emails with nice HTML ones that you can make HTML formatted. You can put images and stuff in it. It gives you all of the standard emails that Drupal sends out, and you could put a big smiley face if you wanted to in the password reminder. Anyway, yeah. Okay, so in version 1, during the installation, you get to choose which of these content types you want to install. It looks like that's been removed from version 2, but it may appear back in there. Basically, because you're installing a site template from now on, you get what the site template gives you. That's what it used to look like. So you would just click on your button, you could put a personal profile in, or you could choose a project, or you could choose none, and then click next, and it would install whatever you've chosen. Version 2, you now go starter, and I think starter will have some, it'll just say you get this, and then it'll install. And certainly Byte installs web form and blog, but they are still the recipes that we've been looking at. You can still go in if you decide, once you've installed everything, that, oh, I should have put blog in there. You can go into project browser, and that recommended YAML file comes, that this is where it appears in the recommended add-ons, and the 12 results that you can see there are the 12 recipes that have been added into that recommended YAML file, and they appear there. If they're installed, you get a nice wee green tick, but the button changes to reinstall, so you can reapply recipes over and over again. If you go in and you set up the blog, and then you move everything around and you add another field, and you go, oh, I don't like this, you can come back, reapply it, and it'll put it back to the way it was. But that's a warning and a feature, because if you make a lot of changes and then reapply a recipe and it puts everything back to the way you were, you've lost all your changes. So you may want that, you may not. So this is where it gets repetitive. Blog recipe relies on the page recipe. So the extra bits this one does is add content to bundles. So when you're looking at your blog page, if you filter by blog, you've got to add another blog, which is quite nice, I guess. And the blog comes with some demo content which you can filter by tags, and I think it's got an RSS feed. That's what it looks like. You can see the filter at the top. If you've got more tags, more will appear, and you can tick them. That's what the better exposed filters do, and selective better exposed filters. So you can tick those, and it works similar to facets. You can apply it, and if you had more than one content, you would see more, obviously, but the RSS feed is at the bottom. That's what the blog post looks like. That's what the top of it looks like. There is body text there. And I had to do a wee bit of work. I used Devel generated a couple more blog posts just to show you that the related blog posts do actually appear at the bottom of this. It was a good few weeks before I realised that was actually a thing, because when you just look at one blog post and it's filtered to not show the current blog post, you get no blog posts. So yeah, I was like, there's a view that does a block. I wonder what that block does. So I added some more and then went searching on the site to find out where it was, and it was at the bottom of this. Case studies recipe relies on the page, and we've got the add content bundle, by bundle rather. This one has some extra fields, so we've got a company name, link and logo, but again the demo content is a basic page with a listing. That's positioned in Layout Builder, and the same kind of blocks appear, latest and related case studies blocks. I never found out where the latest case studies block appeared, but it exists. But the related case studies is, again, when you install more than one, it's at the bottom. There you can see client name and client logo. Further down is the client link. It's kind of Drupal engine. Looks very similar. There's no RSS feed. There's the logo that links off to the site. A lot of content, looks quite nice, and at the bottom you get a link off to their website. Terrible accessibility. I'm keep meaning to look at that and see whether that says visit the company name's website or if it's just website. Anyway, fun. Events recipe. It relies on CMS page. Does anybody want to do this bit for me? Because you can start add content by bundle. This is where the things start getting interesting. We've got the address module here. We've got obviously add to cal, augment, geocoder, geofield. I've actually used this recipe in a few sites as well, because the way it's all set up with leaflet and geocoder, it just makes setting up addresses and showing that stuff on a map really, really nice. But the content is a basic page with a listings view. So see where it gets repetitive. Positioned in layout builder. It's demo content with tags. This has got dates. The listing is, I think it's time based. So the latest and the past event blocks are based on that. Again, the listing page looks similar. There's Claro in action. Do you want cookies? Yes. Okay. Well, you can see the map. If you don't see the map. I thought that was quite nice. And like I said, the address geocoding. It uses Nominet to do the geocoding, which is free. Whereas with Google, I think you have to now have a subscription to get the geocoding stuff. And yeah, the few times that I've done it, clients sometimes want the actual professional geocoding because they can do a lot more with a paid subscription, but I just stick Nominet in a content split for local so that we don't need to waste it whenever you're playing with this stuff. News recipe is based on CMS page. It's got add content to bundle. This has got, again, better exposed filters, so we've got the filters and it's time-based listing. So latest news, very standard stuff. Person profile is going to be almost identical. This time it's got an email and a phone number and a picture. It looks like that. It's quite nice. Projects recipe is identical to case studies. Absolutely identical, just a different name. That's what it looks like. See, there's the logo that links off to the website. Don't know why. Anyway, so that's the stuff that you can just finish the installer and have. Like I said, you can go into Project Browser and you can reinstall some of them. You can install some of the other stuff that you get, or you can use the command line drush recipe and then point to where your recipe is there, and you can install the recipe. And this next lot, what we're moving on to now, is I think the interesting ones. The additional functional recipes, the stuff that I call tools, accessibility tools, AI assistant, Google Analytics, forms, search functionality, and SEO tools. SEO tools and SEO basic are slightly different. You don't need one without the other, but the tools do the extra kind of stuff that not all websites need. This is what...
Ladies and gentlemen, do not miss the wrap-up of the event at 6 o'clock in the auditorium.
5 minutes.
This is the time share the last moment altogether.
This is how I got involved in Drupal CMS. I kind of made this, put in some demo content. That demo content has lots of problems, and it's kind of like a tutorial for editorially. It'll teach you, and it'll also teach you how to fix problems. I got this from the editorial of the website and just included it in the recipe. You also get, as you browse your site, editorially will check each page and you'll end up with a list of issues. I've got another merge request that I was hoping to have in before this weekend, that the dashboard will get the content as well, so that your content appears there as well. AI Assistant, this is the one that's everybody's excited about. It sets up a whole bunch of modules, AI agents, AI. It gives you Anthropic and OpenAI out of the box. There was a lot of work done on this. The recipe installer, when you install it, it pops up a form and says you need to go and get an API key, because this won't work without an API key. And you can see this one depends on the privacy basics, so it also kind of goes, right, Claro, we've got some work to do here. That's what the installer looks like. So you paste your key in, and then you get a chatbot essentially out of the box. You've got a whole bunch of instructions for your Drupal agent assistants, and it'll tell either Claude or the OpenAI what you expect. You can change all of this stuff, all the prompts, the pre-prompts. They're all editable within the modules. But this isn't an AI chat. This is just what you get. So this is as far as I'm going. The forms recipe will set up anti-spam stuff, but we've already got that. We've seen the reCAPTCHA and what have you. You get a really nice contact form, and it sets up a basic page with the web form. That's what web prop looks like. It will send you an email, and it will send them an email. That's all configured. It's a nice way to see if you want to dig into how web forms work. It's nice. Google Analytics, this again is using the same installer kind of thing. It'll ask you for a tag ID. I think this was one of the ones that did a wee bit more and then ramped back, and now it only installs Google Tag. And this was why we also had an analytics recipe, because it was going to be, oh, you might want to use other things, but other things weren't as cheap. And then again, we've got cookies set up using another ECA workflow. That's the installer, and then who knows what that looks like afterwards. Search, again, really nice, and stuff that I think is important. If you want to learn Search API, this is a really good place to go and look and see what they've done. We've got Search API exclude, and there's a few times, I think there's better modules to do that, things that work with meta tag and stuff, but it's a nice kind of out of the box thing. Simple search form, but this sets up a server and an index, and it'll go, again, because you've got ECA involved, when you add a new content type, it'll add it to this, so that all your content gets indexed. The nice bit is, I think it's not counterintuitive sometimes, or not everybody knows. Maybe everybody does know. I just think this is, you probably shouldn't just add all your fields to your search index. You just get the page as a rendered HTML entity, give that to Search API, and it goes, oh, I know what to do with this. I've got all my content, I've got all my stuff. I'm not seeing stuff that isn't exposed. And then you've got anything that you want to filter, you can add into your fields at the bottom. That's what it looks like. Because we've got autocomplete, it does a really nice autocomplete thing, searches all your content, and that's what the form looks like. And the SEO tools. So this is adding focal point and field group and meta tag. It gives you a nice box on the bottom of all your content types, where you can add a focus keyword that then Yoast will use, and it will read your content and it will say, you've said this is about Drupal, but you haven't mentioned Drupal anywhere on the page. It'll give you wee tips. And this, basically sets up all this stuff to help content editors make sure that their content is findable and will be indexed nicely. So this is what the added bit looks like, and you can see the SEO analysis when you filled all this stuff in. There is something to mention here. The token OR module is, there we go, 5 minutes to go. token or module is nice because if you leave the SEO title empty, it'll go, well, just give me the title. Same with the description. And that's what the meta tag kind of config looks like. So you can see there you've got field SEO description or field description, and it does that all the way through. Okay, so this has changed as well. This is what I kind of had when I wrote it back for version 1 being released. Experience Builder was coming. Yeah, it's now called Canvas, and we're getting it in version 2 in a month or two. And I think there's going to be an alpha release of something that means we can start using that really, really soon. A lot of the modules are getting added back in now that they're becoming more stable. The trial experience was something that was going to be an in-browser. We've now got a downloadable tool that you can just run stuff. And then there's Drupal Forge and stuff are all allowing you to trial things. I meant to update this to check to see whether or not we've got any better documentation, and I know that yeah, multilingual is coming soon as well. There's been lots of other recipe related ones, and unfortunately I missed the one that was right before this talk. I'd recommend watching any of them if you want to know what's coming next in Drupal CMS. The Oh No Revert, that's actually really nice because it gives you a UI on how to, oh, I've just installed this recipe and I want to go back to life without recipe. And then obviously Adams was pretty good, just how to build your own site template. Let's go close. Oh, you've got it. Only joking, ask away. Yeah, the slides are there. Feedback, if you want. Questions? There's a mic coming, just hang on for the recording.
So for default content, recipes uses the default content module, and it creates the YAML files. Do you need to use default content to use those YAML files in recipes? So is it a requirement of recipes?
I think, as far as I'm aware, I think default content now comes with core, so it's not a requirement, but it's there. I don't think you need to add it to anything. And I think there's more stuff coming. I was at a talk earlier today about default content deploy, which is another module that uses similar things. So no, but you've got it anyway.
So if you go back in your slides, almost to the beginning, where you say what's in a recipe, because I've been building recipes myself, the documentation on how to build a recipe are worse than normal Drupal documentation. So yeah, it was really hard to start from the beginning. But you have a config directory normally in your over there. You have config directory which is, like you said, mostly the config export of fields and the core, the form, form view and the view of the content type and all of that.
Yeah.
What I experienced is with the help of ChatGPT, which is not always the best idea, instead of having a config directory, that I create them all inside the recipe itself. All the fields, all the storages, everything by using creative, not exist. So it would be config strict, isn't it? That would be this similar.
Yeah. Where's it? Yeah, when you apply recipes.
There you go. Strict false.
Strict false. Yeah. I think that's kind of more. Does this need to happen? I'm not quite sure.
So because if you don't have that and you try to run like a storage field and the field exists,
Yeah.
your recipe will crash.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that is to prevent that.
It's trying not to be too destructive, but
Right.
but recipes again, they are, what do they call it, immutable? No, they're designed to be reinstalled over and over again.
Right.
So yeah, I think there might be protection now in place so that if you have an event content type and you try to install the event recipe, it might go, there's already this here, what do you want me to do?
But is there a preferred way to do this? Is config better than install them in the recipe, or?
See, I've always seen them as the way I do it, the way I've been building recipes is I build my site and I go, the next bunch of stuff I'm going to do is going to become a recipe, so I config export everything and I put that all in my Git repo and I have a clean Git status. I then change a bunch of stuff and I go, right, I'm happy, I config export again, and then I just look and go, wait, what's changed? Okay, I need to get these 4 or 5 files, I'll just move them into my recipe and then I take out the UID. That's the way I've been doing it.
Okay.
And then
And you always have strict false to prevent.
I think strict true means it'll always apply, I think,
Right.
and then it'll change stuff. I might need to come back to you and just.
This is my point. The documentation on actually how this works
Yeah.
really doesn't exist, and ChatGPT is fabricating a lot on how to do it. So
Yeah, and this is my big problem with AI. Rather than just going, you know what, I don't know, I don't think it's clear enough. It'll go, here,
yeah, right.
this is the definitive truth, and then you go. Sometimes I've even had arguments. Are you sure? Where did you get this from? Yeah, you're right. There's no clear definition. I'm like, why did you tell me then? I'll just say I don't know.
I had many arguments with AI.
Yeah, yeah, it's my favourite task now. Is just like, right, Claude, shut up. No, if you want to know this stuff, this is the best time because you can go through there and the people that wrote this, you can go and complain at them for the documentation, or probably better, buy them a coffee and just say, show me, and then write the documentation.
Right. Yeah. I can do that too. Actually, I have a guy that can do it for me. Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.